Hey everybody, Chris Lindsay here, and you're listening to Pitch List. Join us on a deep dive into the heart of what makes writing songs and making music so magical. Let's find out what makes songwriters tick, and along the way, remember why we love music. Welcome to Pitch List. Our guest today is what you'd call an old soul. He has been wildly successful in the last few years, but also maintained his down-to-earth personality and his laid-back vibe. If you wanted someone to help you make a great record, he'd be your guy. In addition to a red-hot production career, he's also a fantastic songwriter, and he has recently released an amazing record called Blue Umbrella, on which he wrote every single track with the songwriting legend, Burt Bacharach. Hey everybody, I'm Chris Lindsay, and here's my talk with Daniel Tashian. Good morning. It's a sunny, beautiful summer morning here in Nashville, and I am excited because I have an old friend that I have probably known 20 more,
probably 25, maybe.
25 years. We have the incredible Daniel Tashian here this morning.
Hey,
how
so
are you?
Glad to be here, Chris. I'm really excited to see you and be back in this beautiful space out here that you have. And thanks for having me.
Oh, listen, we're so excited. I think Dana's been working on this one for quite a while. We were talking before, and we might as well keep talking. You've been out in this space even before Amy and I had this with Paul Kennerly and Emmylou Harris.
Yeah, and actually, what I saw when I came out here was sort of the kind of setup that you see nowadays when you go to a lot of track guys sort of writing spaces where there'll be some monitors set up and a laptop kind of thing, but it was a tape machine. Mm-hmm. And they had built a little studio out here, and this made a big impression on me as a 10-year-old,
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, your parents were musicians.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you guys live here when you were 10?
That's when we moved here when I was about 10 years old, yeah.
Tell us about that.
My dad was playing in a bar band in New York. We lived in Connecticut, and then, I guess the story was that Emmylou stopped in there after a gig to kind of like top up the gas tank and maybe get a bite to eat, and saw my parents performing and said, how about y'all get on our bus and be part of this band? And, my mom decided to stay with the kids, but my dad took the job, and we moved to California for 5 years where they moved and lived in the Valley in Thousand Oaks. And then when Emmy moved here in 1985, we moved as well. And, got into the little ranch house in Green Hills. And that's where I grew up.
Wow. I guess I had assumed when I met you with Troy Burgess, somehow I had a connection in my mind that you were from the East Coast. And you were, but you had been in California and here. And Hillsborough High School?
Went to Hillsborough High School, yeah.
Right on.
Yep. I probably didn't go more often than I went, but yeah, that would be the name of the school that I went to.
I have a son that has a similar story.
Do you?
A musician now, and
he's skipper.
Yeah, he's just now starting to release things on Spotify. But I would drop him off at Hillsborough High School, and I did not know this, but he would just wait till I left and go out the other door. He just wouldn't go to school.
Something about the place sort of inspires that because it's so big and there's so many students that you just get lost in the shuffle so much that it almost feels like it doesn't matter if you're there or not. So if it doesn't matter to them, it certainly matters to me.
Yeah. Yeah, he just didn't like school. Mm-hmm. He just didn't. Sounds like y'all are kindred spirits. Well, it certainly hasn't hurt your career.
Well, I'm one of those people that, my passions in life developed pretty early and were pretty specific. They had to do with playing instruments and recording myself and getting better at that. So it wasn't, like I was just skipping to go to the park and throw the Frisbee around. I was skipping to work on my craft, something that was important to me. So I got started on my passions early.
That's great.
And I kind of recommend that if you feel a strong magnetism towards something, and you're 16 years old, just, go for it.
Yeah, because those are some of the most valuable years for you.
Mm-hmm.
There's another path. Dana went to Belmont, and I think I have a lot of respect for that path also, because you're doing music and you're being trained. And but that's like a critical time period. I agree.
Well, I tried to get into Berkeley because I was playing at this writer's night that a woman was running named Deborah. I can't remember her last name. But she was this really sweet lady who ran this writer's night, and she would let me play as like a 15-year-old. And she said, you would be great at Berkeley. And I applied. I sent my demos in and stuff like that, and I didn't get in. I had the rejection letter, and I had it like framed for a minute because they wanted me to be able to sight read. And I was like, isn't this where you go to learn to sight read? I thought it's sort of like you can't get, I don't know. It seemed weird. So then fast forward to this past year, I wanted to take some online courses, and again, you got to have a bachelor's degree, which I don't have. I have an associate's degree in photography, but I don't have a bachelor's degree. So I couldn't, again, take some of their online classes. So I've been rejected by Berkeley twice.
Well, maybe they regret that now.
I doubt it.
Well, okay, and I'm not gonna, being good at something is great, and being able to read will give a musician some other gig opportunities. Mm-hmm. But so many great players don't read music. I mean, it's not critical. It's certainly in Nashville, it doesn't do you any good.
Right.
Now, if you're playing for the Emmys in LA Orchestra, and you need to be able to sight read.
Yeah.
But
my mom can do it. She's taught herself basically to read bass. Mm-hmm. It can't be that hard.
Right. I was in the band program in school, so I can read.
You just have to have your eye on the bar that you're not playing that's coming up next.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. You just kind of have to read ahead. But some of those players are just unbelievable.
Oh, the film score musicians are unreal, the best in the world. But that's cool that you can read.
I can, but I've never used it in Nashville. I've been here 25 years. I've never used it. Every now and then I'll write a chart and I'll sketch out a little lick, or a little rhythmic thing.
Yeah.
But no. Let's talk about this. When I first met you, you were with Carla at Big Yellow Dog.
Right.
When did you sign with Carla? And you're still with her, right?
Yeah, still there. Yeah. Well, that would have been, let's see, would it be like around 2011 or something like that?
Okay.
Maybe? And yeah, I was getting married, and I'd been talking to her for a while, and I just liked her energy a lot, and she said, well, you're getting married now, you're going to need a job. And something sounded really true about that. I thought that's really a good point. I should have a job, because I was doing my own songs, but I was playing in a cover band for my rent money, and an 80s cover band. And so yeah, I did. I took a job, and I was really kind of reluctant about it. I was like, look, let's just keep this draw really low and everybody's expectations really low. Like, let's do like, $200 a week or something. She was like, no, we can't do that, but I didn't want the pressure of feeling like I needed to really curb what I was doing into what was getting cut, and I didn't want that. So I kind of had sort of put one foot in, but then I kind of realized as I got into it more that that's not the way to do it.
Well, I do appreciate the lower stress.
Yeah.
Of not, we've known people, mutual friends who had hits and then negotiated, massive draws back in the day, and it's a lot of pressure. And you come in 3 years down the road, and they're like, we're in a pretty serious hole here.
Yeah.
With this, and then, I don't think it's good for creativity to have that sort of money thing on your back.
Yeah. And I didn't need much money really until we started having kids, and then you kind of you need more money. But I mean, what I would say about Carla is I have never found a more. Publishers can sometimes have all the like grace and charm of like a Scud missile. They're just sort of notoriously a bit unfeeling. But this is someone, Carla Wallace is someone who really recognizes true soul. I'm not saying in myself, but in musicians and writers, and she's like, really, has, I think, a good sense of what's good about music and what music really is. It's sort of meant to be kind of something sort of magical and inspiring, and not something that is approached always strategically,
Yeah, and she's proven she's an incredible talent scout and nurturer of talent for two reasons. If you look at her roster, that just incredibly successful writers.
But they stood by me for 10 years with no hits. And
that's the other thing.
And then I got a big song, and then they were like, okay, we're gonna hang. But I mean, that's unusual for someone to stay that long. I think it was just because I was just relentlessly positive.
Well, and again, I'm going to give Carla another compliment. She's done that with a lot of her writers. And for everyone listening, it is unusual for a publisher to, but she's totally different, man. She believes in people, she sticks with people, and she's been rewarded for that strategy. There's another strategy with some of the bigger corporate publishers where, like, cut this big deal, and then if nothing, if it doesn't work, well, on to the next one, and she's not like that at all, and I've always had a great deal of respect for her. I mean, how can you not?
Yeah, that's somebody I talk to a lot and like bounce stuff off of, and I've found her advice to be really sound.
Yeah. So reading, another thing I didn't know about you, photography. So you went to school. You just told us you had an associate's degree. Was this a thing where you got frustrated with music and you're not doing that, or it's not going to be your profession? Or tell us about that.
Well, now I'm on to watercolor painting because I've sort of decided that sort of fits my personality a bit more than photography. And I have a nice camera, but and I do enjoy pictures. I do enjoy taking pictures, but I've sort of moved away from that. But what I liked about art school was developing sort of a language around talking about works of art, and you have to take like a history of film and lots of art history classes, and you sort of kind of look at the way that artists sort of interpret living in the world and throughout history, and the way that they describe their feelings, and you'd have to do these sort of artist statements when you'd put a picture or something up, and you sort of talk about your work and what you're doing in it and what it means within the context of everything else that's going on in the art world. And it's all a lot of hot air, but the thing that's cool about it is when you go into record production, you start to use some of those same sort of techniques, and what they do is they sort of give an artist a perspective, or sort of say, you might not totally be able to articulate what you're doing, but this is what it is. This is the things that you're commenting on and reacting to. This is and so it's helpful in record production.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. It sounds like you find it, and I get that, because art is art. And artists are artists, and they're very similar, even like in movie making. I've noticed, having friends in that, and so it is something that has helped you in your production career.
But I kind of had this moment where I got bored with photography, because like I looked at a picture that I took. We were sitting somewhere, and I took a picture of, I think, a gazebo or something with flowers, and then one of my daughters had painted the same thing. And I thought, man, this painting looks way more like the gazebo and has way more of the energy of the gazebo than this photograph does. So I kind of thought, pictures are sort of a bit boring, unless they're of people's faces, and those can be quite interesting. But I much prefer a drawing or a painting of someone's face to a photograph.
Yeah, Nathan Chapman, producer, he's gotten really into photography, and I do it too for fun. He said to me one day, he said, "Do you know how you become a great photographer?" And I said, "Why? How?" And he goes, "Take pictures of famous people." And I thought, you know what? He's right.
Yeah.
It is, and it's those faces. That's what people want to see.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it is a static shot in time of, well, I think because your daughter sort of, even though at a young age she doesn't know what she's doing, she's interpreting how she feels about what she sees. Right? And that's harder to do with the camera. To me.
Yeah, it is, and it's hard to be interesting with a camera, People can do it, but
Yep.
but I think it's easier to paint and draw and find the spirit of something that way.
Yeah, and so you paint now.
Yeah, I have a little, bag that has some watercolors in it and some paper, and I take it around with me if I go anywhere, and it's sort of like knitting. I don't know if you see people when they're a bit like fidgety and they need to do something with their hands. I'll just have my paints with me, and I have a water brush that's already got the water in it, so I don't really need anything. You can take it to the beach. I mean, sitting somewhere and just staring off into space is quite hard for me. So painting is really comforting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find I'm asking, but if I do something like that, maybe work on a poem or anything, it helps me. Like I can solve a music problem better by doing that than just staring at the problem. You know what I mean? It's like somehow it frees your brain to think better about the other thing.
That may be what it is now that you mention it. That may be what it is. Maybe a brain thing.
Yeah, because songwriters say it all the time. It's like you're sitting here just beating your head on the table for 2 hours on a lyric, and then you walk up to go pee in the bathroom, and all of a sudden it hits you. You're like, it's this.
Yeah, have you ever heard the phrase epiphany?
No, but I like it. It's definitely a thing, man. Epiphany. It happens all the time. Or if you just walk, I'll walk to the house to get coffee for everybody. And then when I'm walking to the house, it'll just pop in my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think just, quizzing or puzzling at the problem can really be a dead end street.
I wonder if the astronauts, when they, had to figure out how to, with a great movie with Tom Hanks, where they had to figure out how to slingshot them around. I wonder if they just took a walk and, the engineers to figure that out, because that's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. I bet they did. They may know about that technique. And then I think it is too, man. And I think of these new engineers on a SpaceX team who are already plotting how they're going to get, the first starships that go to Mars are going autonomously, right? Can you imagine how they even do that?
I'm not a space traveler.
No, I would be. If I were you, oh my God, yeah, I'm so into it. Amy is so sick of me talking about it.
You want to go to space.
I
wanted to when I was a child. I thought my astronaut would be a good job for me.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, I gotta know.
Well, you're kind of an astronaut.
Yeah.
We all are. You kind of go to space.
Yeah, you can't. I think I try to explain that to my wife. She's like, let's go to Istanbul. I'm like, I'm already there in my mind. I'm like, I'm already there.
Yes. So now talk to me about because obviously, and we're going to get into your production, and you've just absolutely killed it, obviously, and everybody listening has already figured that out. They picked you up. Or if they didn't look you up, they knew you. And we're going to get into that. But I want to talk about, because you're a writer, man.
Okay.
Okay. And then you've begun to be a producer too. But I'm curious about your balance.
Well, I'm curious about my balance too. I don't really know if I know what it is. You know this as well as I do, because you've been doing this for a minute. But it's hard when you wake up in the morning, like deciding what you should focus your energy on and what things have potential and what things sort of it's tough. It's about time. It's about time management, and I get very seduced by production problems, because I see situations that I could be useful in, and I like people a lot, and especially if people are kind and good natured and seem to be really cool, I want to help them, and if I see a situation I could be helpful in, it's very alluring to me. But it may not be the best use of my time as far as what's really gonna serve me in some I don't know.
Yeah, I hear that, and I know, and I've struggled in the past with, like, you want to maximize your time. But at the same time, man, it's such a mysterious thing that I wonder if it's better that you are like that. It's like not everything has to be a business opportunity. Or,
well, believe me,
you know
what
I mean? So you've got that down. I do too. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's another place. Well, I get it. You're like, maybe I need to not be messing with this. It is a balance. That's why I use that word. So would you
but
say
I
that?
do think that
go ahead.
I do think that you tend to get what you deserve. You know, if you're somebody that really wants to be a hero all the time, you'll get in situations where you're really bending over backwards to like, you know, working with someone who's maybe their timing isn't great, and then you spending hours on their like moving their timing around because you want to make them sound good and something like that. You want to be a hero. You know, and it's like the ego. Your ego wants to be, you know, you want to be. I don't know. It's a funny.
I love this. Keep going, man. I'm a victim. I'm a victim.
It's
do
sort
this
of
to
like
myself.
we do, and I do too, and we deserve what we get because it's really it's how we look at ourselves in the mirror and what we want to think about ourselves. Like I'm a guy that can
fix your shit for you. You're gonna walk out of here loving me,
whatever. And then you only do, you do as many of those things as you got to do before you sort of graduate and realize, I'm not gonna do that anymore. I'm gonna, do something else.
what is that? What's the something else?
Well, working with people that have better timing, or have you don't have to spend as much time melodyning their voice, or people that the problems are so varied, and the red flags are there if you want to see them, but sometimes red flags are like kind of enticing to problem-solving people. I mean, I am a problem solver, and it's like a lot of people, it's like sometimes, people just want to complain, and it's very hard for guys like you and me to just sit and listen to someone complain about a problem because we immediately want to go, well, here's what we're going to do, And I don't know what that characteristic is, but I've definitely got it. And you probably do too.
I do. Yeah. And I'm getting a good, this is good. This is good because it is, Mark Bright, producer. Okay.
Yeah.
So he told me when I was first starting out, the first couple things I produced, I got to kind of know him a little bit. And
I don't know.
But you know who I'm talking about. So super nice guy. And he had done it a while. And he said, hey, if you're not willing to mortgage your house to work with this act and record them a record and then don't do it.
Yeah.
Like you need to be able to mortgage your home, record this entire record on your money, and then go sell it to Sony. And if you're not willing to do that, you don't need to be involved.
That's the Francis Ford Coppola style, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah.
So I didn't take that advice, but I think it's really good advice.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes the only problem with that is sometimes I don't know how good something is. And that's and I admire someone like Mark who really like feels like they know this is good. I mean, you do get a sense. You do sometimes get an instinctive sense like this is a good thing, but sometimes things are good and you don't know they are.
But the joy of working with people who are really fantastic cannot be understated. When you're in a room where for me, when I'm in a room working with people and I'm just like, how the hell did I get in here? You know what I mean? This is like crazy. I just have to hit record.
Yeah.
And that's what's amazing,
Well, you got in there because you're a gifted songwriter and a talented producer and engineer and all those things. And you've been working on it a while, and that's how you get there.
Yeah, that is how you get there. So there's another part of this I want to talk about because researching you, in the beginning, you signed with Elektra at 19.
Right. Yeah.
So talk to us about that process. Was that we like to talk on the show about trying times because I think, you know what I mean? And I think it really helps.
I could tell you some stories.
Yeah, we want them because a lot of people listening to the podcast are just starting out. And, when you start out, you face a lot of adversity. So we love to hear very successful people like you talk about that. So can you talk about that?
I would say my primary adversity at that time in my life was ego-oriented, where I really wanted to prove. I remember telling my mother I read that Joni Mitchell had dropped out of school as a sophomore to focus on her craft, and I said I wanted to drop out, and my mom said, "Senator, you are no Joni Mitchell." She was just sort of aware that there was a gap between my ability and Joni Mitchell's at my age, and rightfully so. So I wasn't allowed to drop out, which was probably fine, but I really wanted to prove that I could do everything myself, and I had written with some good songwriters, some older chaps that were been doing it a while and, you know, had some experience writing songs, but I just sort of put all that stuff aside because it sounded commercial to me, and I wanted to really show everyone my perspective and do it my way. And I wanted it to say all songs written by Daniel Tashian on the bottom of it. And I don't know why I wanted to do that. I guess it was my ego that wanted to, you know, basically do everything myself. And
but your heroes, maybe also your heroes
maybe
did
some
that.
of my heroes were doing that. So, or I thought they were, I don't know. I think if I had learned to collaborate, I could have saved myself a lot of trouble and learned a lot along the way. And it was later that I got into collaboration. But so my early stories are stories of just kind of ego blows and things not like, you know, just being very what's the word, obstinate and kind of like, you know, sort of a bit stubborn about things like that, and also if things didn't work out, I would definitely look for somewhere to put blame, you know, instead of on, well, this has to be something that I did, you know, and it may not be something that I did, but I definitely didn't guard against unfortunate things happening to me by like being very magnanimous and affable and collaborative in terms of the way that I was working with the teams that were around me. You know, I would be like really rude to people and stuff, and just kind of had a bit of a chip on my shoulder. I don't know why.
That's hard to imagine.
You know,
yeah, I mean, I've known you. Like I said,
well,
we've
no,
known
I
you.
think-
You're
it was
one of the nicest guys. That's hard to imagine.
I think it was insecurity because I remember at the same time that T-Bone Burnett was working on my record, he was working on two other records, which were astonishingly good. One was Gillian Welch's first record, which I had actually taken T-Bone to go and see Gillian and Dave playing, and because of something that I liked. They were friends of mine, and I liked them, and they met, and then the other one was the first Wallflowers record, and they were sort of simultaneously kind of doing, and the lyrics on that record were on the Wallflowers record and the Gillian record were so far beyond what at 19 years old I was capable of getting together, that I just felt tremendous insecurity about my perspective as an artist. I didn't have really one. I was just kind of like just starting out in the world, and I didn't really have a viewpoint, or I hadn't really figured out how to articulate it or access it. So I had a lot of insecurity, and I felt like comparing myself to these other artists who were already their perspectives were much more formed, you know, and so I think underneath everything I had a lot of insecurity, and I needed more time. Sort of a bit of a slow learner and slow burner, you know. I needed more time to develop what I was doing. And so my heartache lasted for a good long while, until I think when I was about 24, 25, my grandmother said, I'm going to get you some guitar lessons. And she paid for, I think she paid $5,000 for me to have 6 months of lessons with this guy named Justin Thompson, who, and that's when my pain was alleviated and my internal sort of ego crisis was alleviated, because it opened up my songwriting by injecting all these new colors into my paint box in terms of chordal things, and simultaneously I was sort of, you know, I'd gotten knocked down, but I still realized that my love for music and everything was strong enough to kind of, that I wasn't going to just stop doing it. So I kept going. Yeah.
That's so interesting, man. I've not heard, you hear the story, you know, and unfortunately for you, you're being produced by a guy who's doing just, I mean, those are some high functioning acts, you know, and for you to be 19, I don't think it was helpful at all for you to be in those circles. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's probably very soul crushing. And the other thing is that your response to all that was to go woodshed on guitar. I love that. I think, man, that's great, because you're not sitting around thinking, you know, nobody wants me, nobody wants what I do. You're like, I need to be better, you know?
I think I reached that conclusion after I got dropped and my record sold like, you know, 5,000 copies, and we spent like almost $1 million on it.
Well, it's, making albums is an expensive learning curve. It takes millions. I had a older producer, David Malloy.
Yeah, David Malloy.
I produced my first couple records, and he stopped me over there at Sony, and he said, we're chatting, and he's like, yeah, record producing is one of the only professions in the world that requires millions of dollars to learn how to do it. And I thought, you're crazy. I mean, I really did. I've walked away thinking, why do these guys say shit like this? This is just nuts. But actually, like you said, that's part of your learning process. And I love your reaction to it. And I think for everyone listening, including myself, that is such a great reaction to any sort of, adverse life things on your career. Fucking dig in, man. Mm-hmm. Dig in. Take a vocal lesson. Take a guitar lesson. Open doors in your mind and keep going. That's great, man.
Oh, well, I don't know. Thank you.
No, I do know. I think it's great. So many people can get bitter, about things not working out, or like you say, blame other people, or there's so many different ways humans have of coping with that. The idea of getting back in the gym and getting stronger is the right one, and so few people do it.
Well,
it's a compliment. I'm just complimenting you.
I guess if you really love something, and my love of music and record production just goes back to being a kid, and it's my sort of default happy place. So you want to try to get back there, and I don't know. There's been several moments in my life that I have felt pretty low and pretty demoralized and pretty sort of beaten down and pretty rejected and pretty hopeless about things. And but I guess I just love it a little bit more than that feeling, just a little more, like 10% more. And
you loved it enough to where you just didn't stop.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I still go through disappointments and difficult things. Working with artists that don't like any of my ideas. It happens. I like my ideas, but there's people that don't.
And they came to you. They hired you.
I guess you just get in these situations until you don't anymore, and then you start to like see it from afar a little more when someone's going to be like that. But I'm not there yet. I'm still get these kind of knuckleheads coming through my life every once in a while. It's just like a adversity and changing forms. It's like a shapeshifter.
Yeah. Well, and when you have the kind of success that you've had as a producer, and not only that, but the kind of success with acts that are high on the credibility scale, you're going to have everybody and their brother coming at you to try to work with them.
Well, the other thing I figured out that I didn't realize is how many artists aren't really sort of at the front of the ship in terms of their careers. They're sort of more kind of in the stern,
really,
and the business side of whatever their team is on that side is more driving the boat. And bigger artists than you would think, you would hear, some of these names and think, well, they're obviously, in the front of the boat, but really they're not. When you realize they're kind of, they'll be really excited about what you're working on. Like, man, this is awesome. And then they go and meet with their record company, and suddenly they're like, going to go a different direction.
Yeah, this is good, and we want to go sell something that's like just a new and improved toothpaste. We don't really want a whole new tube.
And I don't know that we need to make a whole new tube or anything. I guess just these are the kind of things that you sort of find out, that they're just parameters that need to be sort of, and I understand. I mean, I'm not naive that if you're going to be, on a major label and spending that much money to make something, you've got to sort of have a bit of a commercial kind of, but I don't know. First of all, I don't want to try to invent a new form of songwriting where it doesn't resemble a popular song. I mean, it's sort of a commercial art form where you've got,
and probably I'm asking, but Kacey Musgraves, those records, I'd be surprised if that wasn't y'all in the studio doing whatever you wanted.
Oh, absolutely. And
Okay.
that's why she's a sort of an exception to the what things we're talking about.
Here's part B, wildly successful.
Mm-hmm,
So why don't they look at that and go, hey, man,
Right.
why don't we throw these talented people in the room and leave them the hell alone?
Yeah, certain people do that. You know, certain people will leave you alone, and then other people kind of are just sort of like, you know, very micromanaging, kind of oriented to it.
Yeah. Well, now that I've mentioned it, so, you know, Golden Hour, record you produced, co-produced.
Right.
Kacey Musgraves. I mean, you wrote 7 of the tracks, 2 Grammys, ACM Award,
Yep.
CMA Award.
Yeah.
One of the Grammys was Album of the Year,
Yeah.
which is unusual.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm sure it's been done before, but it's unusual for a country record to win that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that. I'm sure that's changed your life.
Yeah.
When you were making that record, did you think this is all going to happen, or was just one of these records you were involved in and loved?
Yeah, it was more like that. You know, it was, we had my father-in-law does different real estate things, and one of the people that was one of his clients, one of his friends, was Sheryl Crow, and she, similar to yourself, has a nice sort of barn kind of studio thing.
Yep.
And she had said, you know, she was aware of me, maybe through him, and said, if Daniel wants to come out to my studio when I'm on the road and kind of try some stuff out there, I think just she's a very, like, you know, magnanimous and giving person and a very kind person. And I had written with Ian and Kacey a handful of songs, and I said, let's take these over to her barn and record them. Or maybe Ian had suggested that. Then maybe Ian had suggested that we do some demos, and I had said, well, Cheryl's offered her place, so we went out there, and you know, it's a funny studio. I don't know if you've ever been there or not, but there's a door you can open, and there's like a stable on the ground floor with all these horses in it, and there's a door you can open in the studio where like a sort of a horse's head kind of comes through, and so you'd be like walking down the stairs, and there'd be like a horse.
Yeah, I've
kinda
not
like
been
looking
there.
at
I've
you.
seen
So
pictures, but yeah.
It's very funny, but beautiful place, and we just started getting some nice sounds out there. She has a wonderful API console that she's had for a long time. One of the first things she bought when she got some dough, and she's been collecting fantastic gear her whole career. She has a Fairchild,
wow,
like a really nice Fairchild and 251 microphone. And I remember Kacey saying, we were just up there doing our demos, you know, and I remember Kacey saying, like, man, it's so fun to sing on this mic. And it was going through that Fairchild, and she was just having a great experience as a singer. And my feeling about Kacey was just, she's one of the best singers ever. I remember seeing her on an award show singing Here You Come Again, the Dolly Parton song, and just thinking, man, if I could work with her sometime. I just love her voice. And
yeah,
she's also just a very bright, brilliant artist, songwriter. I don't have enough good things to say about her. She's just great, you know, and definitely changed my life, you know, by believing in what we were doing so strongly that she was willing to just say, all right, this is going to be my record, you know, which took some, I think, a bit of courage, because I think, you know, not only do I think, I know I was quite unproven at that point, my abilities. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're out at Sheryl Crow's place, and I'm guessing, but I'm asking, the first few demos, quote, on demo that you did out there were just probably magical, which made her want to just keep doing that. Because, you know, once you hit a little magic pocket, you just want to stay in it.
Yeah.
Kind of like baseball players. It's like a pitcher. If he's, you know, if he had some socks on and he pitches a no-hitter, man, he's wearing those socks.
Yeah.
Was it kind of like that? Y'all just got
Yeah,
something
kind of
great?
like that. We just got in a groove, and you know, we ended up taking some of the things that we did at Cheryl's over to Sound Emporium and to House of Blues, and kind of adding a few little touches over there, and kind of, you know, then we went out to LA and mixed with this guy Sean Everett, who Ian was a fan of from, I guess, some of the Blake Mills and War on Drugs things that he had been involved with, and so we got to know Sean a bit, and then that started to change our sort of perspective on the way that the audio that we were making would be presented. You know, there was a very collaborative process with Sean in the mixing phase, which we then, on this most recent thing that we did, we worked with Sean again, and that was a eye opener as well. Yeah, so.
Wow. Okay, so there's lots of new influences for her on these records, like a new team with you, and it's Ian Fitchick, right?
Yeah, and Ian is a marvelous musician and diplomat, and encourager of artists, and it's wonderful to have something like that happen in your life, just a nice sort of convergence of energies and of talented people, and then to have it be recognized in that way with your friends is it's a special thing, and I really it's one of the most amazing things that's ever happened to me, to be recognized like that. So yeah. And it still sounds good, It doesn't sound it doesn't have gated snares that sound sort of silly on it, or the cymbals don't. In fact, I don't think there's very many, maybe 2 or 3 cymbals on the whole thing at all.
Wow,
it's not annoying sounding.
Well, it's very organic, which if you go to the basics, use real instruments. Record them, neutral recording.
Yeah, Craig Alvin, wonderful engineer. He's very old school, very good sounds.
I always equate it to if you're decorating or building a home. If you put a Mexican terracotta floor in the kitchen, 30 years later, it's still in style.
Still looks good.
Yeah, no one walks in and says, that's like a dated 70s floor. It's
totally.
It still looks good.
Still looks good.
Same thing with B3.
B3.
You just put a little B3 on a track, no problem. It's going to be 20 years later, nobody's saying shit. Good. It's not going to sound like the 80s.
That's funny, man. That's good. That's a good tip.
Yeah, it's just like that, guitar, acoustic guitar, B3, just the standards, and
there's certain kinds of record making that is it's like a aggressive kind of sound that it's like when you're listening to a song that's quiet and then all of a sudden bang, it gets really loud. It's like a trick that kind of works, but it only works one time, yeah, so you never want to beat up the listener, you just kind of want to sort of, but it's a tough challenge because, there's a lot of competition for people's attention. And so the easy way to get people's attention is to be sort of aggressive, and but it doesn't wear well over time, that aggression, I don't think.
Right. And an album like the record,
twist and shout,
Right. Well, that's the thing. There's always exceptions, but like the record you guys made, that's the kind of thing you can, like old school, spin the record, like just put it on Spotify and just let it play all the way through.
Yeah.
So it's like a whole experience. I think you get that from making it the way y'all made it.
Well, I love records and I like to listen to them. And one thing that sort of puzzles me about Spotify is why, if you start playing a record at the first song and then it immediately switches to another artist. And so we got to get Spotify to understand that albums are cool to listen to all the way through.
Right. Hang on, everyone. We'll be right back with more Daniel Tashian. Stay with us for a really cool original track from Daniel.
When the dark falls around us, when the moon is high above, and the dawn is a distant city, when the stars fall out of love, we can ride in the wind, we can find a place to hide. All alone, alone with the night on our side. when our hearts cross like rivers and our dreams, they collide with a cold world, and it echoes against the longing inside. We can ride in the wind, we can find a place to hide. All alone, alone with the night on our side, we can ride. Dark falls around us, and the moon is high above, and the dawn is a distant city. When the stars fall out of love, we can ride in the wind, we can find a place to hide. All alone, alone with the night on our side, we can ride. We can ride.
So, I want to talk about Burt Bacharach.
Okay.
Now, were you always a fan?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Tell us all about it, like how you met him.
Okay.
How the whole. So
Okay.
You've got Daniel has a record, all co-writes with Burt, and it is absolutely fantastic.
Oh.
And I want to hear all about how that all works.
Okay. Well, this is somebody who a woman named Melody Federer introduced me to. She, out of the blue, I mean, you know, I've been following his music all my life. It's sort of been like beside me. You know, when I was a young child, it was Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head from Butch Cassidy, and then as I got older, you know, it was Arthur's Theme, and then Naked Eyes doing, no, not Naked Eye. Is that who did Always Something There to Remind? I think it was Naked Eyes, but
something.
and then
Yep.
you know, and then followed me through the 80s and then into the 90s, and That's What Friends Are For, and then into the 90s with the Elvis Costello collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
So every decade of my life and my growth as a musician and was accompanied by the music of Burt Bacharach. And so anyway, this woman approached me out of nowhere and said, "Would you produce a couple demos for me? I've written some songs with Burt Bacharach." And I was like, "Yes, I will. I will do that. I will," because I really I liked her a lot, and I liked the songs, and I also wanted to have some interaction with Burt. And I had heard from a friend that he could be tough on demos, and so I was welcoming that, you know. And sure enough, I did these demos in my garage and sent them, and he heard them, and then my phone rang, and it was Burt, and he was like, "You fucked this all up. You know, you didn't understand the cues. Did you even get the lead sheet? You know, did you notice that there was a cue at this section for rubato, and you completely ignored that, you know?" And Number one, I love that he expected that I would be able to like read the lead sheet and decipher the dynamics cues on there, which now, thanks to him, I can. But
well, it's not a thing that's really done
no,
here.
But he did like some things about it. He did like some things about the demo, and he liked enough about it that he wanted to meet me when I was going to be in LA. And so when I was in LA was for the Grammys in 2018, where we won, and so before that, I had talked to him a couple more times, and he knew that I was about to sort of embark on an experience that he had had several times that was going to be, you know, an important time marker in my life. And so the day after the Grammys, he invited me over to his house. And I had said a couple months before that, we should write something sometime. He said, well, send me a little snippet of a lyric if you want to. And so I sent him, I actually went to Guitar Center, and when people were like trying out their guitars, I wrote a couple stanzas and sent them to him. When I got to his house, his manager was driving us up to his house in California, and she said, "Now, Burt will surprise you. He's quite youthful. You know, he's very he's very spry and very so I don't know what you're expecting, but he's going to surprise you." And sure enough, she was right. He came out in these cool aviator sunglasses with this like silver moon suit, Patagonia like you know, astronaut jacket on, and Nike Airs, and he had just gotten out of a workout, and he came down into the living room, with sunken living room with a piano in it, and he said, "I've been working on a little bit of the thing that you sent me, and I'm going to play it for you." And he went into Blue Umbrella, what he had worked on for that, and I had been up most of the night before, and it was a very emotional time for me, but just the tears just filled my eyes and just started rolling down my face. I thought it was so beautiful, and I couldn't believe that I was sitting there, but I could totally believe it too, because I was totally there because I had navigated myself there out of love, out of passion for this man and for what his viewpoint and what he represented to me. Which now fast forward, we're working on some new things, and he's one of my best friends. I mean, we talk on the phone almost every day, every couple of days we talk, and he's just relentlessly in pursuit of, he just loves this stuff so much, and he's just in pursuit of greatness all the time. And, you know, he is a good kind of perfectionist in the sense that when he knows it's right, he doesn't fuck with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But until it's right, it's open season to tweak it. He's not going to settle. You know, and so it's like, I think the bad kind of perfectionism is when you got something great and you just start unraveling it. So I'm learning a lot from him, and I count him as a great blessing in my life. And I just love him so much. I found him to be a exceedingly kind and generous and warm person. You know, he had a bit of a reputation for being sort of a stern taskmaster and kind
surly.
of a bit,
I've heard
and a little bit surly.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, my experiences with that side of him have been, on reflection, a bit funny. Like, I remember one time I was at the studio, and I had this big long lead sheet in front of me, and I'm trying to sort of read along, and I'm not a very good reader, but I did in church, I did read a little bit of choral music, so I'm trying to like follow these notes on my lead sheet, and he's in the control room, and I just said, "Burt, you know, feel free to chime in, like if there's, you know, anything phrasing wise that you want me to do differently or anything like that." And he comes on the thing and he goes, Phrasing? What about the notes?" And you know, so it's a specific thing for him that he hears. And so if you are the kind of collaborator, I don't know, I'm sure you've got this experience where you hear a melody and you're writing with an artist, and you play and indicate that melody to them, and they go somewhere else with it. Yep. You kind of go, well, I want to get this cut here, so I'm just going to let them take it where they want to take it. That's not how it works with him. You've got to stay on the note. He brings you back to what the note is supposed to be. So are you more words with him, and he's like, here's the melody exactly, and if your words don't work in here, you're moving those words. We're not moving this melody. That's right. And does he give... So do you usually give him a piece of lyric, or does he also sometimes give you just music? He does give me just music sometimes, and that's some of my favorite stuff we've done, is when he does that, because I can write the words real specifically to the music. But I give him words, and I give him a lot of one-syllable words because they're easier to move around.
right,
than
Yeah.
longer ones. So.
With him, I'm sure he's pretty. You really got to work, like you said. It's got to be perfect, right? The way it fits in there.
Now that we've written 10, 15 songs, I know when I write a second verse, I never give him a whole lyric. I only give him a stanza or two to start out with. And then that lets him establish the form. And then once the form's established and I can hear it, and I give him a second verse, it's got to be exactly the same meter as the first one. It has to be exact, and it has to sit the same way. So now I know how to do it. Whereas the first handful of songs, I would send him a verse that was slightly different, and I would bounce back.
Yeah, and he'd be like, "Which one of these do you want me to use?"
So it's cool, and I'm really grateful for learning that, and it's changed me, Chris, because now, like I sort of I don't know, I see sort of the more kind of improvisational form of songwriting with less stars in my eyes, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. What about, is he a stickler for hard rhymes or soft rhymes?
Well, I am. I'm a stickler for hard rhymes.
Yeah.
I like hard rhymes. I want everything to rhyme as hard as it possibly can, but it's not possible all the time, but I do love that.
Yeah, so you strive for a hard.
I strive for a hard rhyme.
Right. So when we're saying hard rhyme, we mean that it rhymes.
Yeah, I think it should rhyme, and I think it's sort of lazy if it doesn't.
Yeah. Now something like mind and time, is that close enough for you, or is that not?
Yeah, that's probably close enough, but find would be better. Mm-hmm. One of the best rhymers, by the way, is Natalie Hemby. You look at her songs. They rhyme so beautifully. I just wanted to. Yeah,
no, that's great. And it is more difficult, but I'm with you. Through the years, I've had a couple hard rhymers through here, and at first I'm like, oh, man, come on. But you know what? The more I kind of got into it, it is more satisfying.
Yeah, I think so.
It's more satisfying. It feels more like you stuck the landing. It's like...
Yeah.
I agree about it.
Well, look at Dylan. I mean, he's a beautiful rhymer, boy. Wow, he can rhyme. I mean, he does a sneak attack rhyme where you don't know what's going to be, and comes around the corner at you, and it's hard, and it's a surprise. He might be the best.
Yeah, and
he might be the best.
Tom Petty.
Yeah,
I think
Petty
he got that
too.
from Dylan. He would set you up with. He would give you a line, and then the second line would be a cliche line that you knew was coming. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could just hear it coming, and then he says something totally different. And you're just like, it just takes your brain and goes, right.
Yeah.
I wonder if he got that from Dylan.
I wonder too. I mean, I think there was mutual respect there, but I mean, these guys, the greatest, both of those guys. Yeah. I don't, it's almost like, yeah, I'm not going to put myself down, but I also know my place, and I'm not up there in the tower of song.
We're all just trying to get better, man. But I think you're way further up than you think.
Keep going.
Yeah, I really do. So your Burt Bacharach thing is ongoing. Mm-hmm. So you're going to make more records with him, or more music with him?
Yeah, my feeling is, I want to, because I feel like I never want to be a thorn in anyone's side, but at this point, it appears that he is enjoying the process. So if he's enjoying it, then I want to keep doing it. If he gets onto something else or starts working with Elvis on something, it's dragging on his time or whatever, then I don't want to bother him. But if at this point he seems to be liking it, so I want to do it as much as he does.
Bells of St. Augustine.
Yeah,
that's probably my favorite.
Yeah, that
on
one
the record.
That one might be my favorite too. We've got a new one called Moon Over Wichita that I feel like is up there with the Bells of St. Augustine in terms of the feeling that it gives you. Yeah. That was one that Burt gave me the music for, and he's humming on it. He was it was a hum that he had, and I wrote the words. it was something about what he was humming. He was sort of a hum that he sent me, and he was playing piano and kind of humming around, and it sort of something sort of sounded like that to me. It was sounded sort of Wizard of Oz-ish, where it sounded kind of magical but also a little bit dangerous, and so
so you sort of heard it inside his melody.
Yeah,
a little bit.
And I also know that you know, he's from Kansas, and so some of that landscape you know, might inspire something in him. So if I kind of put something out, it might inspire him musically, you know.
Moon over Wichita. So 2 nouns. Are you a big noun guy?
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's another thing that, like, I was onto, you know, really before I kind of knew that I was onto that. But then, you know, working with somebody like Natalie and seeing how important nouns are to her process. I don't know. It just seems like the songs that do the best. Like if I look at my BMI statement.
Wow.
The songs that seem to do the best are the ones that have nouns in them.
Yeah.
It's just lyrical content, you know. I mean, I don't know. It's really hard doing this stuff. I mean, honestly, songwriting is a pain, you know. And you see people, you know, doing crossword puzzles and doing Sudoku, and like that kind of stuff just hurts your brain. You know, chess, it hurts your brain. I guess the thing is, songwriting hurts your brain in a way that you get something at the end of it. You know, you get this thing that you know, it's like, I mean, I literally really believe like I'm burning calories like at an amazing rate when I'm writing songs. Because I get so hungry when I'm writing songs. I just like, and I feel so awful for the people that have to write with me, because I have to like just eat like trail mix, you know, in order to do it, because it's a pain. It is really a pain. And I think that, but what's more painful is not doing it.
Yeah, because you get the emotional release of doing it.
Yeah.
But a collaboration in a normal Nashville ride, especially if you're with people you respect and you're on something that could potentially be something, I think the concentration is incredibly, I mean, I know you've had this a million times. You just walk out of the room, you're just exhausted. You might as well have run a half a marathon.
Oh, I know. And you know, and my wife is like, "What's wrong with you? You've just been hanging out, having fun, laughing with your friends all day." You know, I'm like,
yeah, it is. My old one of the first guys I learned from back in the days, he used to say, "Songwriting's hard." He would say that in a really, you know, when a dead moment, and
it is.
It's hard,
awful.
man.
It's awful.
It is. But don't you find that you have muscles now where you can definitely you can stay on a lyric for 2 or 3 hours, right?
Yeah, you can. You know, writing by yourself can sort of be. There's a technique where you can punch yourself in line by line, you know, and that can be a little bit easier, but I think sometimes that lyrics tend to be a bit of a necessary evil, because if you want your music to go anywhere, you gotta give it wings, and the lyrics give it wings, you know. And I love music. I mean, really, at the end of the day, I love playing, and I love music, and I love sound. But I don't get to play with any of those colors if I don't have any lyrics.
No, and and I don't know if you had a similar experience, but when you moved to Nashville, you figured it out pretty quick. I'm the same guy. I was attracted to sonic things, you know, and just the sound. And when I wrote songs before I got here, lyric was just sort of something that sounded good, and you just threw it in there if it just whatever. Yeah. But this town will force you to learn to write lyrics if you want to be successful. I mean, you really have to spend the time, because it is necessary.
And talking about like all these projects, you know, that whatever they get nominated for Grammys or they win Grammys or whatever, I never felt the sense that I had anything like magnificent, except for maybe 1 or 2 moments, you know. And I told Burt's manager that. I said, you know, I don't feel like these are the greatest lyrics ever, and I wish I had something just spectacular, you know. And she said, everybody feels like that.
Wow.
You know, because he's giving you this just majestic music. You should be like, you know, giving him the Mona Lisa in lyric form, and I just don't have it.
Well,
but don't let that stop you.
No,
you
and
know?
I think maybe the more you work with him, that'll go away. Just you know what I mean? That's part of just the position of growing up with this guy in your head and just loving him so much and his melodies, have such respect for him, it's always difficult to, it's very easy to think, well, what I'm doing doesn't measure up to what he's doing. But you got to remember this.
Well, it may not, but at least I'm doing it.
No, hang on. He's spending his time with you. That means he loves what you're doing. There's no way around it.
Yeah. Well, I know how to work with him too, to where I don't question him. I mean, there was a moment before we were going into the studio for the first time where it was the night before, and I started reworking some of the things with using drum machines, because I had known he made this record with Dr. Dre where Dr. Dre sent him all the beats, and then he crafted some songs around those. And I was like, you know, it was 11th hour, like 11 o'clock at night, and I started working on Blue Umbrella with a drum machine bassist, and I was redoing the scan of the rhythm of the words and everything. And I called my mom. I was like, Mom, I think I'm stumbling on something that's like really like a new form of music, where it's taking Burt's information that he's giving me and resynthesizing it into this whole new thing where it's like kind of. And my mom was like, just put your car in reverse, buddy. She was like, put it in reverse. She was like, you're gonna, number one, it's gonna really fuck with him. He's flying here to do this session, and you got to look at his charts and let that be the law of the land. Otherwise, he's going to completely just be like, what am I here for? Why don't you just like get your drum machine and go, you know? And I realized that I got to trust him, because he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. And he knows what he does.
Yeah. And my job is not to like modernize or something,
right?
You know, or change it in any way. So it's just to write the words and to sing.
What great advice from your mom, man. So she's a serious resource for you.
Yeah, my mom and Carla and my wife, honestly, all are. I'm a lot of women in my life that are very bright and very know me and believe in me. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a good support system. It's a good support system.
Everyone needs that. I think all in life, writers, but in life, you need people around that you trust, that you can talk about stuff. You know, you really do.
And a therapist, and somebody that, you know, you can, I've got a lot of anxiety, you know, and I didn't realize that I did, because I was, self-medicating, you know, a lot over the last few years. And so now, you know, with a fairly clear head, I can tell I'm a fairly anxious person. And, one thing that's not necessarily appealing about anxious people is they come across as very self-absorbed. I don't know if you've ever been around someone who's quite anxious.
Yeah, I'm quite anxious. I think you hide it well.
Yeah, you hide it. So that's a process that you need a support. You need a good bunch of people around you that can just say, bring you back to the moment, and can bring you back to the present, that can settle you down. And my mom and my wife, and these are all people who are well acquainted with my anxiety and can help bring it down. Yeah.
You know what? Here's the other thing. It's the most common thing.
It's the most common thing.
I mean, it's like 30% of the U.S.
Yeah, it's pretty normal.
Seeks medical help for anxiety. So it is extremely common. So, well, let's talk about the future of Daniel Tashian. What can you tell us what you're working on now, or is it? I know sometimes you can't.
Well, no. I mean, I just finished working with Ian and Kacey on another album with her, and it's called Star-Crossed. And
love that.
It's a it's constructed as a 3-act play. So there's 3 groups of 5 songs that sort of follow the arc of the story, and you can kind of, I think the vinyl's going to have like a little gatefold sort of. You can sort of lose yourself in the whole experience of it, and it's at the end quite uplifting, but it definitely goes through some peaks and valleys, I'm so proud of it, and it was a record that for me was quite physically demanding because of the work schedule. And then I was trying to get up in the morning and be with my family, and then they were quite late hours, so it was it was one of the most physical things that I've ever been involved in. But man, my grandfather used to say that the intensity of the interaction is directly related to the success of the outcome. So if that's the case, it should be it should do well, because it was definitely an intense interaction. So that was I think we finished that like late March, early April. And then since then, I've kind of been working on a couple different things, some songs with Paul Kennerly, who, used to live here. We've got about an album's worth of material that we've been doing. And then some things with my kids I've been doing.
Right, and you have a children's album that's critically acclaimed also.
And then, I've been doing that thing that I do where when I need some sort of re-inspiration in some way, when I feel a little depleted, as I sort of disconnect everything in my studio and find another way to kind of like put it back together and move furniture around and stuff. And my brother's here now, and he's kind of helping me with that. And coming up with, like, last night I had this,
give us some examples.
Well,
of that.
I had this Wurlitzer that was over in the corner, and it's kind of has a hum to it, and I just sort of, it wasn't even plugged in, and I just was like, I'm going to put this over here, and I moved it across the room to where some other keyboards were, and I plugged it in, turned it on, and the hum was still there, but I was plugging it into this mixer, and I just took all the bottom end off of the Wurlitzer, and this thing has so much low end that you can do that, and it still is quite robust with just the mid range and the top end on it. And the hum was gone, and the Wurlitzer was sounding great, and so I sort of rediscovered it, as a thing, instead of maybe just doing it in Logic or doing it with a Nord.
Right, you were avoiding
like
it because it was buzzy. We have one that does that too. It's like that low whatever.
So, it's things like that, and then just kind of putting things in a different, and I'm also kind of a bit of I'm fascinated with modular synthesizers, so I took I'm taking a class right now. This woman, Sarah Bell Reed, does an online class called Sound and Synthesis, and it teaches you sound design and teaches you how to build different sounds from the ground up using modular synthesizers. And I bought some Moog modulars, semi-modulars, and so I'm learning those, and it's like back in school again, and only it's on Zoom, and but I think the thing about electronic music is that a lot of it is sort of inconsequential, and it's fine, but it sort of doesn't. We know as songwriters that the one thing that kind of helps a piece of music is if it has a lyric to it. So you can look at the success of a band like Kraftwerk, because they actually have really good songs, whereas somebody else who might have some really good programming or good music, it's like hard to kind of get anywhere, because you can't. It's not really about anything,
right?
So I'm trying to kind of use the electronic stuff within the context of some music with my kids and with making some songs with it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
That's so great.
I'm really into unique sounds. I mean, like I had one of those Mellotrons that people have been getting. It's like, and do you have one of those? It's like
I don't think so.
Okay, well, they're really nice. And I was using it for a while, and then I started to hear the same sounds that I was using on like every song that people were playing me. And I was like, I'm not the only, I don't know. And maybe it's an ego thing, but I really want to be unique with my sounds, because I want to give people a mood that they don't hear all the time, And so, so I sold it. And got something that's very difficult to operate. It's called an Odyssey, and it's like an aircraft. I mean, there's all these switches on it, and basically the sound, you look in this book, and it tells you where to set the switches to make like a trumpet, and you sort of set it. And I gave it to my daughter. I said, "Here, look, just do it like it is in this drawing for me," and she sets them all. It's very fun for her to go through. It's like a little puzzle, and then you set them all, and you press a key, and it sounds like a trumpet.
That's awesome, man.
So my goal now is to like understand why that's happening, but I'm running into a little bit of time constraint with it, because it's sort of like a retired person's thing to do, and I'm not retired.
Right, and you're writing, you're producing, and you have a family. How many? Do you have 3 children?
I have 3 daughters. Yeah.
Well, I think as it is obvious that you and I could get a cup of coffee and keep this going 4 hours. And I would love to do it. Maybe we could do a part 2 someday.
I'm in.
And catch up with you.
I'm in.
Really love to do that next season. This is Daniel Tashian. You're listening to Pitch List, and I have really enjoyed this, man.
Me too,
Thank
man.
you for your time.
Good to be with you.
I think that people listening are really going to love this one.
All right.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pitch List, produced in partnership with the American Songwriter Podcast Network. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcast or your preferred listening platform. And if you want, feel free to leave us a 5-star rating and review. For exclusive content from this week's guest and more, you can visit our website at pitchlistpodcast.com or follow our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. To hear songs written and or recorded by today's guest, check out this week's playlist by finding us on Spotify at Pitch List Podcast. Plus, don't forget to let us know on social media what songwriter, musician, or music business professional you want to hear from next. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.